Okay, so next up we have Scott Cowley. Scott is an assistant professor of marketing at Western Michigan University with a research focus in social, interactive, and digital marketing strategy. He was formerly a digital marketing consultant in Salt Lake City. Scott is the master at bridging the gap between industry and academia in the classroom. He's going to talk about some of the projects that he's working on, specifically today his SEO project and curriculum that he's using right now. So without any further ado, Scott, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about what it means to teach SEO and how to do it so you know what you're talking about, especially if you are coming from a background where you don't really know SEO, you haven't done it before. So hopefully today we'll talk to you in such a way that you feel both educated about what are the core components of SEO, but specifically about how you can transmit that to students and what is going to be most important as you try to do that. Okay, so just to give you a bit of a background, I spent a couple of years at an agency, SEO.com, learning SEO, doing SEO for dozens of different clients. I went in-house to a publicly traded company where I headed up SEO, and this was all before going back to get my PhD and then becoming a full-time academic teaching marketing. So I know SEO, and I've done quite a bit of it, both as a consultant as well as for agency and in-house, and done it for myself and made money with my own websites. And I can tell you that knowing SEO is not the same as knowing how to teach SEO. Getting into the classroom for the first time, I did way too much. I overwhelmed my students, and it was and it was a struggle to translate everything I knew down to the core of what was going to help them actually learn a skill related to SEO. So hopefully that's what we try to transmit today. I'm going to be talking about a few different things. One, when we talk about everything there is to know about SEO, what is it that students really need to know? So what do you need to be able to teach them in terms of skills? How do you begin? Like, what would be a good process for teaching this? And then specific exercises, tools, and projects that you can bring in really effectively to make this happen. The background you need to know about me is that I teach a couple of courses here at Western Michigan University. I teach an introductory survey course on digital marketing. And so in that course, we spend 4 days on SEO, which may be more than you're spending, but we spend 4 days on it. And then I also teach an advanced digital marketing class where we may do some more advanced SEO approaches. But I'm going to boil it down to what I cover in 4 days. And also you can kind of see how I've broken it up to where if you only have 1 day or if you only have 2 days, what would you do to make that happen? Okay. So there are 3 skills that I specifically try to communicate to my students. The one is they want to know, how do I quote unquote SEO something, right? So it can actually be found by people who are searching, right? So that's like a core skill, is how do I SEO something, is how we commonly say it. And then the other skills are related to specific contexts. So being able to take a look at a couple of different websites or a couple of videos or a couple of businesses and figure out why is one showing up higher than another in particular search results. Being able to diagnose this is like a huge key to unlocking students' understanding of how to do SEO and what goes into it. So just being able to like visually investigate and figure out why is one doing better than another is a huge component to what I try to do. And related to this, what if I am the website that's behind my competitor or the video that's behind my competitor? What are the specific action steps that I need to take in order to make up ground? And so those are the 3 skills that I try to transmit, and then essentially we'll talk about the process to bring students to that point. So the first thing I think is critical to understand is just communicating why. What is SEO and why do people actually care about it? Like, why is it so important, right? If you can get students to catch the vision of why companies invest so much time and money and are making decisions just with SEO in mind. Like that's a good first step to getting students understanding what is the importance of what you're about to teach them. Okay, so what I typically do is you can pick your own example, but I talk about it in the sense of like car insurance. There are 200,000 people searching for car insurance every month. You can imagine we've got some basic, classic car insurance companies, Allstate, Geico, Progressive, State Farm, and they would all love to be the first to show up when somebody searches for car insurance. And but that at the top. But what does this mean? Like, why do they care so much? And I'll basically lay it out for them this way, that if you are in the #1 position for people doing that search, that company is likely to get 20% of the clicks that from all of those 200,000 searchers. They're likely to click on that first place result. And then it goes down from there quite exponentially, right? #2 spot may only get half of that. And if you assume that of all those people who do that search and click through to the site, let's say conservatively that the website ends up turning 5% of those visitors into customers, and customer lifetime value of a new car insurance customer is what I found a stat on, right? We're talking about a very big difference in revenue for the company at the top versus the company that's just a few spots down, right? So being able to actually show them the math and say, hey, look, if I show up #1 instead of #2, we're talking about $2 million difference for one specific search just in 1 month. And hopefully you're just trying to help them catch the vision of why this matters, right? And why companies would invest so heavily to try to move up and displace some of their competitors. Okay, I just think it's useful to know that. But all of this, all of SEO and why SEO works is really just because we are lazy, right? When I search for car insurance, maybe I might be the type who is going to get multiple quotes and look at multiple companies, but the reality is there are a lot of people who don't search that way. They're going to find something that works and they're going to click on it. And so that means that the companies that are showing up first reap the benefits of all of these lazy searchers that just are looking for something that works. Okay, and so it's human nature that is turning SEO into such a profitable channel and practice. Okay, and so helping students understand that is a good thing too. Let me talk about how I teach SEO and how I've decided to ease into it. So I've taught SEO multiple years, multiple semesters, multiple classes, and originally I would just jump straight into like website SEO and kind of like throw people into the deep end of the pool, and I realized that was causing a lot of headache. And so I've changed the format recently to where I ease into it using search engines that operate under similar principles, but are easier to explain in some respects. So I will actually start with local SEO and what that means, because I feel like that's an easier, less complex search engine that still has tons of relevance for businesses today. So I'll start with local SEO, and then I'll move into YouTube SEO and video SEO, which is a little bit more has a little bit more complexity, but is also really relatable for students. And use those two things to then ease into talking about full-blown traditional website SEO, where a lot of the money is being made. But the reality is each of these three forms of SEO operate under some different principles. They have different algorithms. And so I would rather start with something simple and then work into something more complex. Like I'll get through local SEO and YouTube SEO both in the same class period. Okay, and then a lot of the time is spent on some of the bigger fundamentals for regular website SEO once we get to that point. Okay, but I'm going to walk you through how I set this up, and hopefully you'll learn some things in the process. Keep in mind that I know quite a bit about SEO, but my students don't have time to learn as much as I know about SEO. And I also know that I'd say 60% or 70% of what makes SEO effective can be boiled down into just a couple of lectures. And all of the other stuff is, very are niche topics that may become important if you're actually in an SEO role. But if I just want to equip students with skills, then I don't need to take as much time on all of the fluff. And it's not fluff, but what you realize is that if you read a textbook or a chapter about what goes into SEO, you'll end up with 40 different things that you're supposed to remember, but you don't have any good sense of what of those you need to prioritize. So hopefully this will help boil that down into really basic concepts that are at the level of a beginner student. So I'll talk about local SEO first and what this means. So a local search is any search that people do where they are wanting to find some local business to either go to, or a local service provider to hire, something with like a location that's nearby, right? And so I use the example of someone searching for mold removal, just because it's close to home, and that I went to help someone out with some cleanup. They were a hoarder, and I walked in and I found out one room of their house was entirely covered in black mold. So naturally, that's like freaking me out, and that would be a very good reason for wanting to look for mold removal in search. And you see, for example, I've got all these search results that show up. You know you're doing a local search in Google when a map like this shows up with all these businesses listed in it. That's what's triggering the map, is a local search with some intent to find a local service provider. Okay, so what we need to figure out, and what you need to transmit to students is it's like, why is this list of companies in the order it's in? Okay, right now you'll notice if you look at this list, and this will be the same with any type of local search you do, these are not listed in order of their star reviews. It's not listed in order of how close they are, and so you have to kind of figure out, well, what is going on, and it's important to help teach students the principle of what an algorithm is. And so I say, you could imagine if Google only listed all these results as if just by how far they are from the person searching, and they were all just ordered by distance from closest to furthest away. That'd be very easy. They could do that, and maybe that would be useful for a lot of people. And that would be an algorithm that has just one factor. Okay, but we can see that Google doesn't do that. That there's more complexity going into it, and so you realize there's a different algorithm at play, right? A formula behind the scenes that is Google taking into account different things and figuring out how much to weight those different things. So it's very easy. You can even just do this with students, is show them a case like this and say, why, what factors might Google be using to order these results? And they will come up with lots of good answers, and that can get them thinking about the fact that, a few different things. And so you just validate the fact that, yeah, Google probably is trying to incorporate all of these different factors when they're determining what order they should show these local results to people. Because we know that even with local results, those businesses that are listed at the top, that are showing up first, are getting a disproportionately larger amount of phone calls and visits than those further down the list, just because people just want a solution. They're not going to go through and compare all of the options. They will probably start at the top, and if that's good enough, they will become a customer. Okay, so that's why, this is just as important, whether you're selling mold removal services, or whether you're a restaurant, whether you are an oil change company, okay, they're all local searches, and so there's money to be made in being at the top of these local results. So what I then do is once students have kind of generated some different ideas, then I'll show them the actual factors that go into these local SEO results. And so you can see here, like I break it down into proximity, relevance, and legitimacy. Proximity, as you might guess, is really useful as a way for Google to decide what order to display these results. So how close you are really does have a lot of bearing on the order of these search results. And then there are two other big factors is how relevant your website is. You should expect to find businesses that actually offer the service that you searched for, right? That's not not magic. But in that category, what does that mean? Like, how does a company become more relevant to what's searched for? Well, there are two basic keys to that. One is that Google offers a way for businesses to give them information about the business through what is called a Google My Business profile. It's a free service that they provide to invite business owners to give them information about the business name, the business address, the business phone number, store hours, and specifically like the categories of the service or product that they offer. Okay, so that's like a really big factor, just to Google having official information about you to know whether you're relevant for what is searched. But then also Google's looking at the website that you associate with that profile in your business to see, are the words you're using on that website, are they matching up with the words that people are searching for? That's how Google can tell that you're a relevant company that deserves to show up. So that's the relevance side of it. And then this other side is the legitimacy side. Google wants to recommend good businesses. Google wants to recommend businesses that it knows are legitimate, that people are actually going to be able to find the solutions that they're looking for. So they're looking at a few different things to gauge legitimacy. They're looking at the reviews that you have, right? Just because you're the best rated company doesn't mean that you're going to be showing up first, but it is something that Google takes into account, and specifically is looking at whether your reviews are, if you have more of them, and if they're of higher scores than your competitors that would also be showing up for the same thing. So they're taking that into account. They're also taking into account whether there's consistency between what they have information about you. So in terms of your business name, your address, and your phone number, is what they have the exact same thing that's on your website? Okay? Because if it's not, then Google won't trust that they are actually delivering legitimate information about the business. So you need to make sure that what they have matches what the company's saying on its website. And then related to this are things we call citations. So Google's relying on other sources of information about businesses to reinforce the information that they have about you. So they're looking at sites like Yellow Pages or Yelp or even Apple Maps to see, did these sites also mention this company? Does the address, name, and phone number, do these things match what we know about the company, which matches what the company is saying about themselves on their own website? Okay, so those things are creating legitimacy. And once you understand these different factors, then students can be prepared to actually go in and look and say, why is one business showing up much further down in these local search results compared to the business at the top? You could actually have them go in and investigate based on this knowledge in looking at the website, looking at that profile page within the maps, and come to some conclusions to help diagnose why one website is doing much better than the other. Okay, so this is like a really good starting point to use a few different factors and check all those different factors to see if you can answer the question of why one is ranking better than another. And the reality is this is a really, really good core skill to have for any marketer, right? Because if you have a friend who opens up their own local store or business or restaurant or offers a service, right, they really need this information if they want to generate leads or customers from internet searches. And just by knowing this information up to this point, students will literally know more than 90% of small business owners. They don't understand the importance of these different things. And so they can actually be very well equipped to help a local business out. Like, you could spin this off into going out and finding businesses that are not well optimized and encouraging students to actually like set up a mini consulting opportunity to help those businesses if you wanted to. I haven't done it myself, but it'd be a really practical thing that would give them some hands-on experience. So this gives you a sense of how I just kind of lead into local SEO, and you can spend more time on this, right, as much time as you want, but it shows you the core components of what I teach as I'm easing students into this concept of algorithms and multiple factors we have to account for, and understanding how the algorithm factors are resulting in very different rankings when somebody does a search. So then I go to YouTube or video SEO. I mean, so much of video is just YouTube anyway. But specifically recognizing that YouTube is a gigantic search engine that we don't normally think about. It would technically be the second largest search engine. And a lot of companies right now are investing in video, which means that students benefit if they understand how to get more exposure for company videos, for promotional videos, or for educational videos that they may end up making either for themselves or for others. I've had multiple students who have their own YouTube channels who are trying to grow their own influence on particular topics, inspired by lots of famous YouTubers making a lot of money right now. And so it can be really beneficial, and students really like understanding what goes into YouTube, probably a lot more than they do thinking about local SEO, even though that's a little bit easier. So I cover video SEO next, and here's where I just jump straight into looking at the factors that will have a big impact on whether one video is showing up higher in search results than the others. And I break it down into three basic pieces. One is whether the content in the video, the title of the video and the description of the video, whether that content matches what somebody was searching for. You can imagine if I type in some keyword, and we'll talk a lot about keywords when we're talking about SEO. And the thing that students really get confused on some of them is if I say keyword, then they think a single word. But what I really mean when I say keyword is any phrase that might be searched by somebody. So it's good to clarify that students should just mentally translate whenever I say keyword or keyword research, that we're talking about phrases or multiple word queries that people use when they search for things. Because most people don't search for one word searches. Most of the time they're more they're lengthier, they're more complex. Anyhow, going back to the YouTube SEO factors, one is figuring out if you want to be perfectly optimized for something, then the phrase or the keyword that someone searches for, that exact phrase should be found within the title of the video in the exact word order. Same thing with the description, literally taking that phrase, that keyword, and putting it naturally somewhere in the description. Doesn't have to be the only thing there, but it should be in there. It should retain that exact word order. And then we know a little bit that Google favors some longer videos. I don't know that that's something you need to focus heavily on, but we do know through some correlation research that longer videos are better. So there's this idea of optimizing the content, and then Google owns YouTube, but they want to show the most relevant videos to people, the videos that are actually meeting people's needs. And so the viewer behavior that is around the videos that Google has to choose from has a big impact on which order they decide to display those videos in search results. Okay, one of these is video retention. YouTube can tell how long people are actually sticking through the video, and then they're rewarding those that do a good job of keeping people's attention for the whole duration of the video. And then, like you might expect, YouTube is also rewarding those that get a lot of video engagement, likes, comments, shares, and how fast those are coming in right after that video gets published. Those are all good impact factors. And then also looking at just the overall video traffic. That generally the rich get richer when it comes to YouTube, and so the popular videos tend to remain popular because they are so widely viewed. And then you also just have to recognize this third factor, channel strength. Okay, more established or popular channels, if they publish a video, there's a much better chance that those videos are going to rank much higher than a channel that is just starting out brand new. Okay, so and for any of these things, it's like whether it's local SEO or YouTube SEO or regular website SEO, right? If you know just by looking at a search result, if one video is ranking higher than another video, it's because of one of these three factors or some combination of multiple factors. And so you could do an audit exercise on video if you wanted to. You don't have all of the metrics around like how long people are watching the video, right? But you could look at all of these other factors and come to some conclusions. So I'll explain those factors to the students, and then I have a specific skill that I want to teach them, and that is how to find a low competition keyword. And so low competition means people are searching for it, but the videos that exist for that search aren't well optimized for that search. Okay, and what that means, it becomes a great task and skill to have, because then when students are able to identify those type of keywords, then they can create videos around those keywords and likely get traffic just by publishing those videos without needing to have some high-powered popular YouTube channel. Okay, so the principle behind this is that people have a lot of different ways to search for the exact same thing. Right, we phrase our searches in so many different ways. In fact, 15% of all searches done on Google every day have never been done before. It's just some unique combination of words. And so if we can tell which of these ways, all the different options we have to describe the same thing, which of those keyword options has less competition in search results, then we could just create a video and use those specific keywords and increase our ability to rank well and actually get people to see the video. Compared to if we pick a keyword that's already really popular, everyone else is using it, then we create a video and use those same keywords, then there's a good chance that we may never show up higher than all the other videos that exist. Okay, so what we're trying to do is figure out how do we find these low competition opportunities as an exercise. So the thing I have students do is go to YouTube, and as you start searching for something within YouTube, you'll notice that YouTube starts to try to guess what it thinks you may be searching for, using these drop-down recommended suggestions. You see, as I just start typing out how to make a book cover, I have all of these long phrases, and the thing you need to know is that every single one of these phrases that YouTube recommends are things that people search for. Okay, every single one of these. We don't know how much at this point, but we do know that these are all searched, and we do know that they all kind of have a specific niche meaning to them. Some are more generic, like how to make a book cover, and some are really specific, when we're getting into the type of material that you'd use. And so usually these longer, really specific searches, we call them long tail keywords. So they're longer, and we know that they generally have fewer searches than a broader search. But in many cases, that's where we're going to find the low competition keywords, is through these really specific searches. And so I'll have students just play around with YouTube's search box and try to find multiple searches that all have the same meaning, and recognize that people have different ways of searching for things. And if I start out my search with how to make, well, then every suggestion is going to start with how to make. But there may be other ways that people are searching for that same thing if I had started with different words. So as you can see down at the bottom of the slide, these are all different ways that mean the exact same thing, but are different ways that people are searching for how to make a book cover using wrapping paper. And so it's a good exercise just to find different options for keywords that have the exact same very specific core meaning like this, okay? Because then we have all these different options and we can see, okay, how much competition do these keywords have in search results, and how much are people actually searching for them? Might have a bearing on which one of these we decide to pick. So there's a process. Like, so much of SEO is not about vocabulary, okay? Being able to teach SEO is about understanding the process it takes to do SEO, and not so much just vocabulary or even memorizing like algorithm factors for a particular search engine. But if you want students to be able to do SEO, you need to be able to take them through the process of doing SEO. So I have like 6 steps to this process for YouTube, and one of which we just did, right? We're generating a list of these keywords whose meanings are all interchangeable. And then we're going to check the competition levels and the search volume levels for each of these keywords. Once we do that, then we can decide on a keyword that is minimizing our competition while at the same time trying to maximize the search volume, because that is how we would get more views from searchers if we have those 2 things in place. And then if we want to take it to the next step and actually optimize a video for those things, then we just have to take that primary keyword that we picked and we have to work that into the video title and work that into the video description in order to be what we call perfectly optimized for it. Now, if we use some of those same words, but in maybe a different order, or had phrases that kind of changed those a little bit, then they would cease to be perfectly optimized, but they'd be partially optimized, which you'll still get some credit for, just not as much. And so if we want the best chance of having a video rank, then we need to make sure that that word that we pick is in the exact order. And as you know, the YouTube algorithm cares not just about the words you're using, but how people are actually engaging with and responding to the video. So if you were to make a video, then you'd want to take some steps to actually get people to engage with the video by promoting it. Sharing it on social media would be an easy example for students, but also thinking about how do we keep people's attention throughout the video. And I don't show that here in this presentation, but if you do a search on Google for how to do video SEO, you'll probably get one of the very first search results. Maybe the first one is from a guy named Brian Dean, who goes through some really easy principles for how to retain viewers for the duration of a video that I assign my students as reading. So here's an example of what I did in class to show how do we check the competition level. Once we've got a few different keyword options, how do we check competition? And the answer is you just do a search on YouTube and you see who shows up. And in this case, I did this example in class this semester where I found these keywords all related to how to frost a cake and some variations, some longer tail variations of that. And so we do a search for something like how to frost a cake. And you can see in the results on the left, I'll search on the page and see how many of these videos that are showing up when I do that search are using that phrase, how to frost a cake, either within their title, which is getting more weight than the description, but in one of those places. And as you can tell, there are multiple videos that have that exact phrase, how to frost a cake. And these videos have like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. So that tells me, oh, these videos are already optimizing for that keyword and they're really, really popular. And so that to me says high competition. That says if I were to make my own video using a brand new channel and use that keyword, I'm not going to show up anywhere. Okay, so students need to understand, this is how you check competition levels, is do the search and check those video titles and check those video descriptions just on the search result page. Okay, and then I compared that to a longer tail search for how to frost a cake with a butter knife. I know that this is something people search because as I start typing it in, it is suggested to me by YouTube's drop-down search results. So I start doing the search, and And I noticed that none of these results use that phrase in the video title, how to frost a cake with a butter knife. They're not using it in the descriptions either. None of them even mention knives. Okay, so that to me says that this is probably a lower competition keyword, where if I were to make a video about this, and publish that video and use that phrase, there's a much better chance that that video would show up high when somebody else does that search in the future. Okay, so it's just trying to understand what makes a high competition or a low competition keyword within search results. And this same thing works on regular Google results too. If I'm trying to show up in Google, I can take whatever keyword option I have and just search for it and see how many of those blue links, those titles in regular Google results are using my keyword phrase exactly as I have it, and are there opportunities there? I'm looking for ones in which not a lot of sites are doing that. So once I do that, I'm doing that to check the competition levels. And then what I also want to do is I want to check and see how many people are actually searching for this keyword. And so there are a couple of tools that I recommend to use to do this. One is called ubersuggest.org, and the other is SEMrush, which is a paid platform. I mean, they both have paid versions, but they'll give you some of this keyword volume data for free, just by doing it. So you can use these tools to look up those keywords on your list and then just document the search volumes for those keywords. And I found when I did this for some of my keywords that, okay, how to frost a cake with a butter knife maybe only has 10 searches a month, but that's better than the others, which didn't even show up when I searched them in the tools. And you just have to remember, if you have a keyword and you know that people search for it because it was recommended to you when you start typing in phrases in YouTube, but that keyword does not show up at all in one of the tools used to check the actual search volume, it just means that people are searching for it, but it's too low to register on the tools. Usually that just means less than 10 per month. Okay, but it's still a good thing to pick if you're a student, just because people are searching for it. That's the most important thing, is making sure students do search for it. So let me tell you, like, I did this in class. I showed students how this would be done, and then I got home that night after doing this hypothetical thing, and I was talking to my wife about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, this should work if we were to optimize a video for that phrase, how to frost a cake with a butter knife. Then based on this research we did, that should be a low competition keyword that I should be able to rank pretty easily for. And so why don't we do it? And so we took a couple of hours on a Saturday and we made carrot cake, and I had to make up my technique for how to frost a cake with a butter knife so that it didn't look completely made up. Okay, and then I did it. I published it, and I also promoted it to social media. I asked some friends to watch it, to comment, to like it if they got some good value out of it. And you can see within a couple of days, it was now ranking #1 both in YouTube and in Google for that particular search, right? So it's proof of concept. The students love the fact that, like, I just did that and showed them that this is actually how it works. And so as a result of that experience, I packaged that into an assignment where I told students to do the exact same thing that I just did, to find their own keyword topic that they were interested in, to create a video around it, and then to optimize it. I think it's much easier to do something like that on YouTube than it would be to, like, publish an article or something that you're trying to optimize for, just because YouTube is so accessible, and to me it's more of an even playing field. It doesn't take a lot for students to be able to do something like that. So I had students do that this semester, and for a first run, I was actually pretty impressed that I had more than 20 students whose videos ranked in the top 5 search results for the low competition keyword that they picked, which is a really good sign. And if any of you are interested in seeing the assignment materials for that or the rubric I used, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to send any of the stuff that I talk about or use to anyone who's interested in doing this. But it shows them that it can be done. Okay. So students really get a hands-on experience when you do it that way. I think it's really, really beneficial for students to actually taste the fruits of their own optimization experience and realize that it can be done. Okay. When I talk about regular website SEO and the thing that companies are putting the most time into, like there's so many different things I could talk about, so I have to make sure that I keep it relatively simple. Okay, and some of these principles are consistent with the principles that we've already talked about for other types of search engines, and that is that Google's trying to decide which web page to show in search results after a search. And they're looking at two big picture concepts. One is how relevant that web page is for the search, and two is how popular that page is for the search. And they're judging these two things in different ways. As you'd guess, the relevance is they're looking at the words that are actually used on that page in different places. And then to see how popular a page is, like should it deserve to rank, they're looking at how many other websites are linking to that page or to that website, and what those links say. Are they coming from other related sites, right? There are a bunch of link factors too. But anyway, you just have to know that there are these two big picture concepts: the keywords that we're using on the page, but also the links that are coming to that page or the website. And I just reinforce this fact that if one page is ranking higher than another in search results, it's either because that page is more relevant, or it's more popular, or in many cases, it's a combination of both of those things, right? That concept is just so important to communicate to students, all right? And so like you can compare it to how we optimize a YouTube video, where we only have a couple of things that we're optimizing, but on web pages, we have a lot more things, a lot more places on that page where we can work our chosen keyword in to be fully optimized and to show that we are really relevant for that search. Okay, so for a web page, you have a page title, you have a meta description, which is like your little chance to tell people what the page is about, that people are only going to see in search results and not on the page itself. You have the URL of the page that Google's looking at. You have what's called an H1 tag, which is really just the quick short description, usually at the top of a page, about what that page is about. You have your page content. It could be paragraphs of content all describing the page or the service that you provide or the product. You can optimize image file names, and there's also anchor text, which is really the links that you would use on your own page to take people to that page that you're optimizing. What do those links say? That's the anchor text. So you have a lot more factors that you could optimize for a web page. And so I think it's critical for students to be able to find all of these different elements on a page. Some of them are there in plain sight if you go to the page, right? Things like the page content, you can see what that is. You can see what the URL is right in your browser. But other elements, you have to actually open up the source code of the page, usually just by right-clicking, and go into the source code to find what that page title is, what that page meta description is, and whether they have an H1 tag, okay? And so students should be comfortable pulling out their laptops. It's not easy to do this on a phone. Use a laptop to actually get into the code and just search for those specific elements to know what is this page using for those things. And I'll just have students write all of those elements down so that they have a very clear picture of these are the different phrases and sentences, and here's how we're talking about ourselves in each of these different elements. Okay, it's really important. Students go a long way just by being able to find each of these elements that we care about. And I'll even just like create a worksheet page where I show them, I'll walk through an example for one page that shows up for a search, and I'll point out where each of the different elements are. And then I'll turn them loose and give them an example page and say, okay, now your turn, go find each of these elements that this page is using. And I'll ask them as a follow-up, based on all of these the ways that they've phrased these elements, does it look like they're trying to show up for a particular keyword? Like that keyword is frequently appearing in multiple elements, that could be an indication of what they're trying to show up for. And then once they have a good command of that, I'll take it a step further and say, all right, now imagine that we have a keyword we're trying to show up for, but there's another company that shows up much higher than us. In this case, I use just a local attorney company. And so I will have them go find all the elements that should be optimized on one site, do the exact same thing on the competitor site that just happens to rank higher than them. And so they can compare to see which site seems to be using the keywords more consistently or better, and where might we be deficient, right? Now, there are a lot of different things you could teach somebody about these different elements: the URL, title tag, meta description, H1, and the page content. And I put together just a quick and easy table that could help summarize the fact that some of these have character limits. So if you go over a certain length on some of them, then Google's not just going to ignore what comes after the limit, right? Or some of them are places where you would want to mention your company name. Some of them aren't. Some of them are very important, like the title tag and the actual page content are getting weighted really heavily compared with the meta description, where they're valuable because searchers will see them, but they're not actually helping the SEO for a page. So it's good to just familiarize yourself with each of these elements and the nuances to what makes for a well-written URL versus a title tag versus a meta description. There are a lot of resources online to help you understand just that, what the conventions are for writing these things in an optimized way. Okay. So once students have the ability to compare two websites and see how are they doing in terms of the content in each of these elements, then we have to look at the other side of SEO, the off-page SEO side, and compare how popular are these pages based on the links. Now, there are a lot of ways you can analyze the links coming to a page or a website, but I like to keep it really, really simple. You can use a tool like SEMrush will do this, or there's another tool called Open Site Explorer that will give you some free data about this. But you basically can just plug in two different web pages or two different websites, and they will spit out a ton of different metrics related to the links that are coming to those pages from other websites. And that's what you use to determine how popular one page is compared to another. And honestly, when I'm teaching students to do this, I teach them to ignore most of the metrics and look specifically at the metric that shows how many different websites are linking to us. Okay, you might see that phrased as referring domains in one of these link reports, but that's like every single one of these websites linking to us. It's like they're voting for us. It's an easy way for students to understand how that works. So when I compare two pages, then I can quickly jump to that metric, and I can see on this page, for example, I compare one law firm to another, and I can see one law firm has more other websites linking to us than the other law firm, and not by too many, but they do have an advantage in that area. So you know that one site is more popular than another. So then once students can find both of those pieces of information, the relevancy or the on-page, and compare two websites that way, and then have the off-page or the link metrics and the specific one that they care about, then they can see all of that information together and compare those two sites to see why, based on this analysis, is one website ranking better than another for a particular keyword. In this case, Kalamazoo estate planning is the keyword that I picked. Levine & Levine is ranking number 18, while Tibble is ranked number 3. So we have to figure out, why is Tibble ranking so much higher? And we can compare, students can then compare how those two websites are doing in terms of the content optimization, and then how are those two websites doing in terms of the links that they have, and they should come to a conclusion that yes, we're actually doing better than our competitor in terms of our website popularity, but our competitor is doing better than us in terms of the content. And the fact that we're ranking behind them means that Google must be giving a lot more weight to the content, to the on-page SEO side of things. And if we want to compete, we are going to need to change some of our elements, the ones that we're behind on, to make them just as good or better than our competition. And that's essentially what you can then have students do, is do this exercise of looking at those two factors, and then if you want, having them rewrite the ones that they seem behind on, okay? So like that's kind of the next step to take this. Now, it's hard for students to necessarily gain a lot of experience with what we call the popularity side. Like, it's easy for students to rewrite content to make it perfectly optimized, to use the keyword when we weren't using it before. But if we have a problem in that we've got a popularity disadvantage, well, we call that the need then becomes what we call link building. How do we get more relevant websites to link to us to increase our popularity numbers, our link numbers, okay? And that's the hard part. And you have to explain to students that in the real world, if a company hires an agency to do SEO for them, they may spend the first month just doing their research to figure out what words do we need to change in order to make the on-page SEO good. But then, like, the majority of the campaign is often spent on link building, the slow and hard part of like how to get other websites to link to us. If you want an exercise that you can do for students to help give them some intuition around what to do for link building, you can use these link analysis tools that I told you about, SEMrush or Open Site Explorer, where they'll actually list out the websites that are linking to the site you picked. And you can have students just look at the actual pages on those other websites that are linking to us and start documenting why are these websites getting links. And then specifically, you have them look at like a competitor's website, the one that's ranking better than us, and figure out where are their links coming from. Why are other websites choosing to link to them? And then how can we turn that into our own strategy to where we could get similar types of links, right? Either from the same website or other similar types of websites. What would or how would we need to go about doing outreach in order to get these other websites to link to us? So that's a really simple strategy, even though they may not have a lot of time to actually practice trying to do that for a company. So hopefully that gives you a nice overview of what you might want to transmit to your students in terms of the actual skills that they would need to do SEO for themselves for different types of businesses and different contexts. And please, like, all of these things, try it out for yourself before you expect students to be able to effectively do it. If you want to teach SEO like you know what you're talking about, then you have to have some experience doing what you're teaching about. So hopefully that's been beneficial. Email me with any questions if you want some of the handouts or assignments or worksheets. Feel free to get in touch with me or just send me a tweet, and I'll try to help you out. Okay, thanks.
Scott, thank you. All right, folks, can we just get a virtual hand raise if you wish Scott Cowley could be your digital marketing instructor right now? Like, literally take a class from him right now, because I know that's for me. Scott, we have some questions for you. Awesome presentation. Saw a lot of comments and engagement on Twitter throughout your presentation, so you've got a lot to look at when you get done there. But let's go over some questions for you. All right?
Yeah.
So, first question: why is YouTube SEO more complex than local and website?
Oh, I think YouTube SEO is more complex than local search, but not as complex as a regular, like optimizing a regular website is. Okay. I mean, so much of local search is just weighted by how close the business is to the searcher that there's not as much variability there. Mm-hmm. And I think the complexity in video SEO is the fact that you have to care about video engagement. You have to care about like the viewership components of it, and how do we get people excited. And it's not just about using the right words, but it's about like how do we how do we make this worth watching? And how do, like, there's a promotion component to it that is having an impact on which videos show up. So that's where I think it can become challenging for someone who is not used to like planning out the dynamic nature of a video. Go watch some YouTube videos and watch these pro YouTubers, and you see all of the different ways in which they are trying to keep attention throughout the whole video and trying to lead people to engage with the video, often at the end, or prompting certain types of comments. Like that could be an exercise in itself. Have students just document the different tactics that pro YouTubers are using to keep people watching longer and to go and engage with the video, and you'll see what I mean there.
Fantastic. Okay, Scott, this is just a comment for you, but I liked it, so I'm going to read it off. The way that you break down areas of focus and priorities are very helpful and effective. So respect and props to you for being able to explain such a complex and difficult topic.
I just feel bad for the students who had to go through the initial iterations of getting to that point, right? Everything that's, comes after a lot of trial and error. Yeah,
fantastic. So if you just jumped on, Scott talked about how to teach SEO in the classroom, and if you have any questions for him, just leave them in the question box on the right. We're going to move on to some more questions. Scott, you answered this. I don't know if this question came in after you spoke about it, but maybe we can just kind of retouch on that briefly. The question is, how do you effectively check the competition and search volume levels? Let's take that towards YouTube.
Yeah, so I like really fast ways to check competition levels, and for me, I usually just keep it at really surface level for teaching students and just say, hey, do the search for that keyword and look at the search results, look who's showing up in the top 10. Are any of these results using my keyword phrase exactly as written in the title? And if they are, well, then that would make them perfectly optimized for it. But most of the time, the results are going to have like bits and pieces or different word orders of that phrase you searched, which means Google's giving them some credit or YouTube is giving them some credit, but you could do better by keeping that phrase exactly as written and not creating those variations. So that's true whether you're looking at YouTube and the video title and description that show up in results, or whether you're looking at Google's own results and looking to see is the keyword showing up in the clickable title and all these results. That's how I check. That's how I check competition. And then search volumes, you have to use one of the few public tools, especially if you want a free one, like ubersuggest.org or SEMrush would give you access to that data. There's no other place to find it. Google themselves doesn't make that easy to get for regular people.
Yeah, and just a quick plug, we have an SEMrush project in the Stukent learning platform where we've worked out a deal. It's for 30-day license or 30-day access to their Guru plan for free. Your students get a license for free for that project. We have a project written out already for you to just plug and play. So I would suggest taking advantage of that, and during that window of time, go through Scott's projects as well. Knock out a couple, a couple different projects right there in one with one account.
Yeah, that has been so fantastic for us is just using that partnership that Stukent created with SEMrush, because I used to set that up just one-on-one with SEMrush myself, and so I had to do that every semester, but now it's super, super easy. The only thing we had to figure out is how to get professors access from semester to semester, because their own access will expire, and if you want it again, you basically have to use a different email address.
Yep, that's true. Yep. Maybe there's a question that came in about Amazon SEO. Do we want to address that? Like, have you had any students ask that? Okay, do the same principles apply with the Google products? Do they also apply to Amazon? Do they cross over?
Yeah, the answer is yes. The general principles of relevance and popularity are going to apply in nearly any search engine that you may want to optimize for. Amazon SEO is certainly a huge business, right? That is like single-handedly making the success of many businesses on Amazon. It's definitely a niche topic where if I were teaching SEO as like a semester-long course, we would definitely spend a lot of time on looking at Amazon specifically, and you can read articles about studies they've done to figure out what factors might be contributing to Amazon rankings. It's not something that I cover in depth because most people honestly will probably not go to work for companies that are selling a product on Amazon. Like, that's just the nature of what I have observed, and so I've decided to deprioritize that in favor of things that students may have lots of need for, like local business, like video, and then regular web pages. So it's just a conscious choice I've decided to make.
Great, thank you. Have another question here for you. Drag and drop websites, how are they different from websites, platforms like WordPress when it comes to SEO? So I'm guessing like your blog spots, your Feedly type websites, your WordPress.com websites compared to a traditional WordPress CMS platform.
Yeah, the quick answer to that is that there are a lot of CMSs that are considered not SEO friendly because they don't give you full access to easily change all of the elements that you may want to optimize on a particular page. And so I can't speak to every platform, but the reason that WordPress is so often selected as like a default solid option is because it is an open source project, and if they don't give you instant access to the elements you may want to optimize or the other things that would be helpful for SEO, then they have plugins that will activate with one click to give you that fast access. So, I mean, I will always favor WordPress over other platforms just for SEO reasons.
Yeah, exactly. What do you do anything special to keep yourself up to date and familiar with any algorithm changes in Google or YouTube? Is there anything special you do? Do you follow? Is there like a resource that you follow that kind of keeps you in the loop so you don't have to actively always be like on the lookout?
The redeeming answer is that regardless of what people say about algorithms changing all the time and Google constantly testing changes, the core of SEO has not changed in years. The core principles work no matter what dramatic changes that Google might be making. Now, I mean, I have my learning system set up from when I was working and the sites that I would read and the people I would follow who are talking about this. I mean, if someone who just wants one single resource, I'd point them to something like searchengineland.com, where they do a good job of staying on top of any changes that way. So it's a good publication for that. But just know that you don't have to feel like the ground is going to be pulled out from under you because you're not actively staying on top of things. It's not, the core principles as to what makes a good search result are pretty consistent.
Yeah, especially if you're playing by the rules, right? If you're doing everything white hat and along the terms of Google, you should be fine. Okay, Scott, I think that is it. I don't see any more questions here in the panel. We're right on time. Appreciate you, Scott, once again for sharing, basically opening up your playbook on how you teach, how you conduct your classes, how you teach students SEO. this is going to be a fantastic resource. Once again, if you're just logging on, we are making all of these presentations available afterward. We'll make the recordings available as well as the slide decks where you can download and kind of go back through the slides.
And in 2 weeks, I want you to search for how to teach SEO, and I'm pretty sure that this video is going to be ranking for it.
Nice. It was funny. We've had some conversation on Twitter. A lot of people fact checked your video on the butter knife. Anyways, they're posting screenshots in and saying, "Yep, he's right. He's ranking #1." So
good.
Anyways, thanks, Scott. We're gonna if you have anything else to share, please do. If not, we'll see you on social. Scott, where can people find you on Twitter?
Just at Scott Cowley.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.